Canada reflects, respects, and remembers. The critical reminders for the next generation.
It could very well happen to them with the way things are going in the world.
And the ceremony honoring Indigenous veterans.
They didn't get the recognition they deserved.
Also on this Tuesday, a snowy surprise in southern Quebec.
Make a trade between the leaf blower and the shovel.
The mess, the misery, and the power outages. Plus the agreement to finally end America's longest government shutdown.
This is a disaster all across the board.
Why it's not a done deal and how it's causing political infighting.
Global National with Donna Friesen.
Good evening and thanks for joining us. Across the country, Canadians pause to reflect and remember today in a ritualized moment where grief and gratitude coexist. At the National War Memorial in Ottawa, veterans, their families and supporters, plus dignitaries and the Silver Cross Mother gathered to mark Remembrance Day. This is Mark Carney's first Remembrance Day as Prime Minister. In a statement, he said, "Today we honor the service of the brave women and men who answered the call, those who sacrificed years away from loved ones, those who returned from combat forever changed, those who never came home." In an increasingly dangerous and divided world, remembrance is also vigilance. Our chief political correspondent, David Akin, was also in the crowd and has our top story tonight.
Every year, at the 11th hour of the 11th day of the 11th month, the silence of peace. And moments to reflect and remember those who served and those who continue to serve. Veterans from Afghanistan and other missions of this century.
If we don't have the stories, generations after us won't understand. They may have to understand if it happens to them, and it could very well happen to them with the way things are going in the world.
This year, on the 80th anniversary of the end of the Second World War, the Royal Canadian Legion is focusing on the last veterans of that global conflict, like 99-year-old John Priest.
I have served with the Royal Regiment of Toronto and was wounded in Holland, April 2nd, 1945, and here I am.
Now known as the Royal Regiment of Canada, Priest's regiment was part of the Canadian Army that liberated the Netherlands from the Nazis.
Jerry, you got me. Right arm. That was the end of my career in the military.
Priest says on this day, he is remembering one particular friend from that Netherlands campaign who never made it home.
Jusowitz was the same, a nice Ukrainian boy, and I often think about him when I come by here.
More than 7,600 Canadians died in the 8-month campaign to free Holland. 15-year-old Theo Wilson's great-grandfather served in the Second World War, and Theo is keen to learn more about that experience.
In school, from what I've seen, they talk a lot about it and make sure you remember. And they talk about carrying it and make sure everyone learns about it.
And at the end of the day, a chance for all who attended to place a poppy on the tomb of the unknown soldier. And remember. David Akin, Global News, Ottawa.
There was a separate ceremony earlier today in Ottawa at the National Aboriginal Veterans Monument. It was unveiled in 2001 to honor the thousands of First Nations, Inuit and Métis veterans. For decades, they didn't receive any recognition for their contributions. They weren't even allowed to play a role on Remembrance Day. Taria Isri reports on how that lack of respect is being acknowledged.
For many Indigenous military members and veterans, this Remembrance Day has taken on added meaning.
It's an opportunity to heal.
The Canadian Armed Forces issued a formal apology for racial discrimination within the forces just 2 weeks ago, admitting they failed Indigenous service members, those who served in the First and Second World Wars and in Korea without the right to vote back home. Veterans who returned, but did not get the same benefits or recognition as their fellow non-Indigenous soldiers. An emotional Colonel George McLeod from the Kalapu Mi'kmaq First Nation in Newfoundland says they paved the way for him.
They didn't get the recognition they deserved. The fact that I can wear my hair long is a tribute to what was taken from them.
Colonel McLeod and others paid tribute to their sacrifice at the National Aboriginal Monument in Ottawa.
It's part of the Canadian awakening of the service that the Aboriginal veterans did for Canada over the many conflicts.
A national awakening is also underway when it comes to sovereignty. Canadian Ranger Titus Alalu is in his 70s and still protecting the North.
The Arctic is there's less and less ice, and there's more and more ships going through. That's a concern.
Heightened awareness and respect.
I believe the Canadian patriotism is really lit up, so it's quite nice to see.
Highlighting the crucial role played by Indigenous military members, past and present. Taria Isri, Global News, Ottawa.
Canadians across the country marked Remembrance Day at ceremonies from coast to coast to coast. Hundreds of people gathered at the Grand Parade in Halifax in front of the city's cenotaph, a tradition that has carried on since 1919. Winnipeg also hosts one of the country's most established services. The indoor venue at the Convention Centre draws thousands of people every year. And on the West Coast, a dry and mild day in Vancouver saw a large crowd gathered at that city's cenotaph. A little later, their numbers are dwindling. We hear from some of the last veterans alive from the Second World War. But first, it was a chilly, snowy Remembrance Day in Quebec. Parts of that province were hit with a very early snowstorm. There were school cancellations, traffic jams, and more than 300,000 homes lost power. Mike Armstrong reports on the snow that caught a lot of people off guard.
A major snowstorm the second week of November isn't unheard of, but it's unusual, and it caught many off guard.
I had to go dig out everything in the basement, make a trade between the leaf blower and the shovel.
We were caught off guard too.
Now, even Environment Canada is admitting it kind of missed this one. Snow was predicted, just not where it hit. The Montreal region was supposed to get 5 centimeters. With the storm passing to the east, it was more of a direct hit.
We had like almost 15 centimeters more than what was expected.
Hydro-Quebec crews are busy restoring electricity. The heavy, wet snow weighed down trees, breaking branches. This isn't something people usually have to do.
I was powered approximately at 11.
Last night?
Yes, p.m.
Getting cold?
Slowly comes. I wake up because I was cold.
At the peak, more than 300,000 homes lost electricity. Hydro says more than 1,000 damaged lines are being repaired.
There will be people who will have to wait until tomorrow, and we thank our clients for their patience regarding that.
Well, it was power failures that forced several school boards to cancel classes, one of the earliest snow days in memory.
This is very surreal. Usually it's after Christmas that it happens.
You don't worry about this at this time of the year?
Absolutely not.
No. The early snow also meant an early rush at garages. In Quebec, winter tires are mandatory on all vehicles. That said, the deadline to have them on is still almost 3 weeks away. Mike Armstrong, Global News, Montreal.
The U.S. Senate has finally passed a funding bill that could put an end to the longest government shutdown in American history. A small group of Democrats joined Republicans to break the political deadlock. That shutdown has had an impact on everything from paychecks to flights and access to food aid. Jackson Proskow reports on the crucial next steps.
The bill, as amended, is passed.
By the narrowest of margins, the Senate took the first step.
We are going to reopen government.
Passing a bill that funds the U.S. government until February, after 8 Democrats decided to work with Republicans.
I just refuse to shut our government down and hold our government hostage.
Politically, it's messy, causing a rift among Democrats because the deal fails to extend health care subsidies, leaving millions of Americans to face a substantial increase in health care premiums.
This is a disaster all across the board, and people are bitterly disappointed.
To win support, Republicans promised to hold a separate vote on health care in the future. Democrats have no guarantee it will pass into law.
We're in a situation where we're negotiating with a president who just doesn't care about what the American people are facing.
The funding bill still needs to be passed by the House, where Republicans hold a majority and will reconvene as early as Wednesday. Once that's done, millions of Americans will see food benefits restored, while furloughed federal workers will get paid and receive back pay. But it's too late to stop further pain at American airports, where things are actually getting worse.
My flight has been severely delayed.
Tuesday saw an increase in mandated flight cancellations, up to 6% of all air traffic, resulting in thousands more flights grounded or delayed. Once the government reopens, it could take days to return to normal flight schedules.
And hopefully I get out of here so I can get back home.
Millions of Americans are now in a holding pattern in the sky and on the ground, waiting for the longest shutdown in history to officially end. Jackson Proskow, Global News, Washington.
Britain's public broadcaster in crisis. Coming up, how the UK government is defending the BBC as the American president threatens to sue. This is a day to remember those who never came home and why honoring their sacrifice matters. Global National is back in a moment. The United Kingdom has reportedly taken the unprecedented step of suspending the sharing of some intelligence with its close ally, the United States. It's because of the Trump administration's lethal strikes on what it claims are drug smuggling boats in the Caribbean. According to CNN, the UK says it cannot risk complicity in what it views as extrajudicial killings. Since early September, more than 70 people have been killed in U.S. strikes on a number of small boats it claims are operated by narco-terrorists, but it's not provided any evidence. The intelligence pause is said to have begun over a month ago. The British Broadcasting Corporation is dealing with one of the biggest crises in its history. 2 top BBC executives resigned on Sunday after an internal memo was revealed criticizing the BBC's flagship documentary program for editing the speech President Donald Trump gave just before the January 6, 2021 attack on the Capitol, and claiming the corporation has serious and systemic editorial bias. Trump has now threatened to sue for $1 billion, and supporters of the BBC say now is the time to defend journalism and not give in to him. Vincent McAviney reports.
A beloved institution trusted around the world, but the BBC is facing an unprecedented crisis. Last week, a leaked letter revealed a concern with an edit in a documentary that aired just before the 2024 US presidential election.
We're going to walk down to the Capitol, and I'll be there with you, and we fight. We fight like hell. And if you don't fight like hell, you're not going to have a country anymore.
But these two statements in President Trump's January 6, 2020 address to the Capitol rioters were actually spoken roughly an hour apart. They were cut together without clearly indicating the edit. The BBC board has now admitted this was an error of judgment, but it's led to accusations in the right-wing press and from former Prime Minister Boris Johnson that the broadcaster is institutionally biased.
Our journalists aren't corrupt.
The head of news, Deborah Turness, and Director General Tim Davey have both resigned.
I'm really proud of our work, and the amazing work locally, globally that we're doing is utterly precious. We have made some mistakes that have cost us, but we need to fight for that.
Despite the programme never airing in the US, the White House is accusing the BBC of election interference. Donald Trump has sent a legal letter claiming the broadcaster aired defamatory, disparaging and inflammatory statements, threatening a $1 billion lawsuit if the corporation doesn't respond by Friday. Prime Minister Keir Starmer's government is keen to stay close to President Trump. Nevertheless, they are defending the BBC.
The BBC is facing challenges, some of its own making. It is time to grip this with a clarity of vision and purpose that secures the BBC's future.
Since his return to the presidency, a string of US broadcasters, including CBS and ABC, have paid millions of dollars to settle Trump lawsuits. If the BBC were to pay a settlement, it would come from public money, a move which would be deeply unpopular, meaning it may decide to face off with the president in court to defend its global reputation. Donna?
All right, Vincent McAviney in London, thank you. In Pakistan, an attack by a suicide bomber outside a district court in the capital, Islamabad, has killed 12 people and injured at least 27 others. The attack happened at one of the busiest times of the day. Pakistan's interior minister says the attacker tried to enter the courthouse but couldn't and targeted a police vehicle outside. A splinter group of the Pakistan Taliban has claimed responsibility, but Pakistan's prime minister has alleged that extremist groups actively backed by India were involved. Ahead, reflections more than a century in the making. We hear from Canada's oldest veteran. Each Remembrance Day, those with first-hand memories of the Second World War dwindle. It has now been 80 years since that war ended. Veterans Affairs Canada estimates there are just under 3,700 Second World War veterans alive in Canada. This year, one of them reached an extraordinary milestone. Burdett Sisler turned 110, making him Canada's oldest veteran and oldest living Canadian. Karen Lieberman had the honor of meeting him.
Burdett Sisler, or Bird as he's lovingly known, has many stories to share from a lifespan more than a century. He was born in 1915.
That's 1915. A lot of people think I say 1950, but it's 1915.
He still has his sense of humor at 110 years old.
You know, I look back and say, what did I do? I had spare time, but I don't remember doing anything exceptional.
Bird's son Norman reminds him there were many exceptional moments. He was born in the middle of the First World War in Ohio before moving to Ontario and eventually serving for Canada.
I didn't do much fighting in the war. I was training in telecommunications, and it was all secret.
Bird recently became Canada's oldest living person, and by extension holds the distinction of being this country's oldest living Second World War veteran.
People really need to sit back and take a deep breath and be thankful, because they did a lot. And a lot of people I don't think are aware of how much they did and what they went through in the war zone. It was probably hell on earth for some of them.
As ceremonies mark Remembrance Day, in a world filled with uncertainty, under the shadow of a trade war with the U.S., Bird says he's more proud than ever to have left his birthplace and come to Canada.
I can't believe the way that place is falling apart.
In Fort Erie, where he raised a big extended family, complete with 14 great-great-grandchildren, Bird's uniform is proudly displayed at the Royal Canadian Legion, a reminder of his service to the country he calls home. Karen Lieberman, Global News, Fort Erie, Ontario.
Next, capturing memories. More veterans from the Second World War open up about their past and reveal their concerns for the future. In Ottawa, the Senate is beautifully lit up to honor Canada's fallen heroes. Global National is back in a moment. It's not always easy for veterans to talk about what they endured, but cherishing and recording the voices of veterans from the Second World War is a vital part of connecting the past to the present. Heather Urix-West spoke with two veterans, both over the age of 100, about their experiences at war and their concerns for the future.
It's been 8 decades, but at 101, Bob Roseneater remembers the Second World War like it was yesterday.
Yeah, I can remember things quite clearly. A lot of things. And I particularly remember the crew.
A pilot from Australia, Roseneater served with the Royal Canadian Air Force in Burma, delivering supplies to the British and Indian Army.
The worst part of the whole operation over there was the weather. We lost 2 aircraft to the monsoon conditions.
Others, he recalls, were shot down. A young pilot from Seattle was among them and is someone Roseneader thinks of each Remembrance Day.
He was a good guy.
My brother, for one, he's all passed away, but I will be remembering him.
103-year-old Elmer Friesen enlisted for service at the age of 20, inspired by his older brother, a medic on the front line.
When he came back, he never spoke about what he had done. He never spoke about where he had been.
Friesen's own service was very different, working first to repair military planes in eastern Canada before joining a traveling military entertainment show.
I've always had a difficulty telling people about my war experiences because I wasn't in the front lines, I wasn't anywhere near any danger. I finally got over that by saying I did what I was asked to do.
But 80 years later, both men realized that sharing their first-hand accounts of the Second World War is especially critical now.
I wonder about what's going to happen in the future. There seems to be no thought about peace. Everybody seems to be fighting each other.
The centenarian veterans left to link us with the lessons of the past, in hopes we don't forget them in the future. Heather Yurex West, Global News, Calgary.
And that is Global National for this Tuesday, November 11th. I'm Donna Friesen. We say goodbye tonight with some poignant moments from today's National Remembrance Day ceremony in the nation's capital, lest we forget. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you here again tomorrow. Bye-bye.